The night was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that seemed to lean in and listen. On the edge of an abandoned desk, a paintbrush suddenly twitched, shook off a decade's worth of dust, and lifted itself upright like a soldier waking from a dream. Its bristles glowed faintly, shimmering with colors that shifted every time you blinked, sometimes neon, sometimes metallic, sometimes hues that didn't obey the spectrum at all. Across the room, a seashell sat on a windowsill, silently collecting moonlight. It had never once seen the ocean, but it pulsed with the sound of distant tides anyway, as if remembering something it had never experienced. When the moon rose higher, the seashell cracked open like a door, revealing a tiny spiral staircase that led down into a dimension where gravity was optional and time walked on stilts. The paintbrush, sensing the change, dipped its glowing bristles into a jar of completely transparent ink. The moment the bristles touched the liquid, the ink erupted into swirling clouds of musical notes, actual notes, fluttering around the room like moths with shimmering wings. The paintbrush guided them gently toward the seashell, painting them onto the air itself. With each stroke, the staircase inside the shell grew longer, deeper, more curious. The seashell responded with a low hum that rearranged the furniture. Chairs folded themselves into paper cranes. The rug melted into a tiny, warm ocean, complete with miniature waves that whispered polite greetings. The lamp stretched upward into a spiral tower, its light bending into impossible shapes like origami made of brightness. The paintbrush, growing bolder, painted a door on the wall, just a messy outline at first. But as soon as the seashell exhaled a gust of warm, salt-scented wind from its hidden staircase, the door solidified. Its hinges sighed, its doorknob blinked sleepily. The paintbrush and the seashell shared a look. Not quite friendship, not quite conspiracy, but something beautifully in between. And then the door swung open on its own. Through it was a landscape painted entirely in moving brushstrokes. Clouds splashed onto the sky with joyful carelessness, rivers drawn in long, looping lines that scribbled their way to the horizon, trees sketched in rough charcoal that shook themselves awake and stretched. Everywhere, faint echoes of ocean waves whispered inside objects that had no business remembering the sea. With a soft clatter, the paintbrush hopped through the door. The seashell followed, rolling along the staircase inside itself until it reached the threshold. As it crossed into the painted world, the seashell expanded, growing taller and wider until it resembled a spiraling cathedral made of coral, its windows glowing with tides from another reality. Behind them, the room sighed and rearranged itself back into normalcy, as normal as a room can be after hosting an art supply and a seashell that opened a doorway to a painted universe. And somewhere in that shifting world of brushstrokes and phantom tides, the paintbrush and the seashell continued onward, creating landscapes nobody had ever seen, humming songs nobody had ever sung, rewriting reality one impossible detail at a time.